today, we lose about 50% of the dealers every 20 years now. We're at risk. How the hell can they know what the heck the dealer needs and wants?
He's identified the common denominators that separate exceptional dealers from the struggling ones.
Data should drive every damn decision we make. Why do we do it that way? People don't look over the wall. They don't challenge. Life is simple. It's people that screw it up. It really is.
This is Heavy Hitters, and I'm Jay Lucas, a 30-year executive search veteran. And throughout my career, I've invested in the success of countless organizations. On this show, I interview industry-leading executives to highlight make-or-break strategies and tactics that drive performance. Ready to tackle some heavy lifting? Let's go.
Well, welcome to Heavy Hitters, where we are dedicated to sharing insights from executives in our industry to help us improve our personal and business performance. And so today we've got Ron Slee joining us, an industry pioneer. Ron's got 40 plus years of transforming how our industry thinks about dealer operations and employee development, which we will get into. Ron's also worked for major OEMs and dealers worldwide, creating innovative training programs. He's identified the common denominators that separate exceptional dealers from the struggling ones. And then also on today's show, Ron will share some of his vision for developing the next generation of heavy equipment professionals. So welcome, Ron.
Thank you. I don't know who the heck you were talking about there.
That would be you. I appreciate you making time. Lord, we just thank you for this time. I thank you for Ron and the decades of experience that will prove to be helpful in today's conversation and has proven to be helpful in many other of Ron's interactions. So we pray that your spirit would guide the conversation and help bring to light all the things that can help our listeners. Amen.
Amen. That's a nice touch,
Ron,
Jay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. A long time ago, I just decided that keeping my faith in the closet just wasn't an option. So I pray for, if I'm having a meal with somebody, I pray, and I would say 99% of the time it's well received. Occasionally people they think it's weird, but anyway.
It's an interesting statement on society, Jay, that we tend to hide our personal for fear it's going to upset somebody. I learned a long time ago to be true to myself before anything else. And I've been blessed in so many ways in my life. And one of the things that I did that was interesting that relates back to faith, and we're off topic other than I believe it relates to how people develop and grow and learn.
Definitely.
And that I played piano in a bar and I played organ in 3 churches when I was going to university. I had to figure out a way to pay for it. In those years, it was about $500 a year for tuition. For $2,000, I could get a degree versus my grandson who wanted to become a nuclear engineer, applied to, got accepted by Purdue and told me it was $350,000, at which point I dropped my teeth, but one of the things that happened to me is the piano playing was Friday, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon, and I would start at 6 in the evening for background to meals, and then we would move into sing-songs, and then we would move into schmaltzy stuff as people picked dates up and did that kind of stuff and left. So I would finish around 4 in the morning Saturday, and I taught skiing at 9 in the morning, so I had a very short night. And the same thing was true with Sunday, and I had to get to church, the first church for 9. But I met 2 priests that were touched in my life. One of them was a guy in St. Sever. This was about an hour north of Montreal, the southmost ski country out of Montreal. And his congregation, his parish, was drug users, addicts, prostitutes, pushers, all of the so-called underbelly of society. And I traveled with him. And the man was a saint, honest to God. It was unbelievable, the impact he had on people who'd been left behind, ignored.
Yeah.
You'd walk right past them. And then many years later, a neighbor of ours in Denver A retired Air Force officer lived about 6 houses away. They were having lunch one day, and their youngest son hung himself in the basement
Oh,
because he got bullied at school.
yeah.
And the priest that convened over that was also a saint. He could look into your soul. It was unbelievable. But then in the churches, I had one Catholic church, one non-denominational, and one Anglican church, which is, Henry VIII's contribution to religion, because the Catholic Church wouldn't allow him to divorce somebody. And my sister wanted to marry a divorced Catholic. And to the Catholics, that's not possible. So I went to this Anglican priest who I'd played for a long time and who I saw every Saturday night in the bar, whose wife went to school with an aunt of mine. And I went to him and explained the circumstance, and I said, she'd like to get married in your church. He said, well, I can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that? He said, well, the church won't allow it. And I said, fine, we'll do it in the garden. And he said, Ron, I can't do that. I said, why not? He said, because of my belief.
Hmm.
And I looked him in the face and I said, I see you every Saturday night with a different woman. Is that your belief? So I became very cynical very quickly, and I subscribed to the Buddhist way of thinking, which is do good. And if you can't do good, don't do bad. But I believe everybody has a spiritual requirement in life. And most of us don't give us much thought because we don't have time to think. And maybe that's not an opening that you wanted to start with, but I'm deeply spiritual, and I really sincerely believe that people have a hell of a lot more potential, personally and professionally, than they would dare to contemplate.
Mm,
So they just don't think about it.
for sure. I think there's a lot of people in society. The thing about Christianity, I'll just speak to Christianity, not speaking to other religions, but we're typically judged by the worst of us. So the best of us, we are diminished by the worst. And I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand is I think about faith, the Christian faith in particular, it's like a language. It has to be practiced in order for you to really be skilled in it. And it's a spectrum. So you have on one end of the spectrum, the less mature, and the one end of the spectrum, the more mature. And we're all somewhere in between. The question is, are we moving further to greater maturity? And then what is the pace at which you're moving? And if we're exercising our faith and moving towards greater faith, it- then that's a good thing. But oftentimes, those who are further on the right end of the spectrum, the more mature, are often judged by the ones that are slow moving or not moving at all, and are still somewhere on the spectrum. So, but I don't let that deter me. I mean, I can only control me and what I can do, and so hopefully at some point someone will be influenced by that, and I would consider that to be a good thing and an honor. I would start with you've got a lot of experience in this industry, and in 4 decades, I venture to guess you probably have even more than that. Just give me a sense today. If you look back over where the industry has been and where we are now, and what's what's the biggest difference, and what's influencing the industry most significantly today? And is that different than what's influenced it in the past?
Nice, easy questions. Thanks a lot.
That's a lot to take on, I'm sure.
Yeah, I started in March 1969 at a Caterpillar dealer in Montreal, Quebec.
Mhm.
And that's 56 years ago. And computers were just arriving. Nobody really
Not the
knew.
computers of the Windows world, though. mainframes, right?
Even before the Windows world. We're back
Right. That's
in
what I'm
almost
saying.
at record, big clunky
Yeah.
IBM 360s and
Yeah.
System
They took up a whole
32s.
room.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was a data processing manager. Note the difference in terminology. Um, I got a call one afternoon from the man who was the president of the company. He said, "I want to meet you on Monday morning at 8 o'clock in Ray's office." And Ray was the data processing manager. I said, "Okay, what's up?" He said, "That's your new job." I said, "What?" "I've got things I'm doing here." He said, "I'll see you Monday." And he made me data processing manager when I was the general parts manager because he was upset that the systems people didn't understand the business.
Mm,
So there's one statement from 1969 that still applies today.
it does.
The people that are driving, designing, programming systems have never worked in a dealership today. The two major providers, Constellation, which is DIS and NDS, and Vital Technologies, which is ADP and PFW. Nobody in the programming staff that I've been able to identify has worked at a dealership.
Right.
Neither have a lot of the installation people.
Hmm.
So how the hell can they know what the heck the dealer needs and wants? And so that's one big, huge difference. Another one is we never had parts and service salesmen. The dealership that I was at, Hewitt, we were the first ones to have product support salesmen for Caterpillar dealers in the world.
Wow.
And I was their prototype. And they worked for me. And the qualifiers, interesting, they had to have neat handwriting and they had to come out of the parts department. And they had to sell these particular commodities,
Hmm.
none of which Caterpillar made, which was kind of
Hmm.
intriguing.
Yeah.
So they had no idea how to set it up or anything. I mean, it was crazy. So it was kind of like the way that I characterized it, I gave a salesman who was sitting across the desk from me a list of customers, gave him a key to a truck, pointed at the door and said, "There's your vehicle, there's your market, go sell."
I think that's
Today,
still happening today.
well,
Go get
for
him,
many
Tiger.
it is. For many it is, but today we have unbelievable data.
Oh, yeah.
Nick Maverick is a perfect example where
Yeah.
and so is Steve Clegg at Zentoro. Maverick has built data and Clegg is in Toro, and there's many others. I'm just picking out two of the people that I work with
Sure.
closely, and they're both smart like hell. Data should drive every damn decision we make, and both those
No doubt.
gentlemen have data coming out the wazoo. You want market segmentation, you want market potential, you want territory management, how to do it,
Right.
who's buying, who's not, what's retention, what causes it. All those things are present today, but then go back to what you said. That's too complicated. Most people just, here's the list of customers, there's the door, here's the key, get gone. I used to do evaluation of salesmen at one point in my career, and I'd go in for a week and I'd travel with 5 guys, and I'd have a list of their customers. They'd never met me, I never met them. I was probably in a territory I'd worked before, but that's a separate issue. So we'd get into their truck and off we'd go. And it was obvious the first 2 or 3 calls that everything had been set up. The salesman said, "I got a guy that's coming in to look at me, and I'm gonna call on you. If you don't mind, we'll just have a nice chat." So we did that in the morning, everything's good. What a wonderful salesman I was traveling with, it was amazing. And we'd have lunch, and then after lunch, we start off, he says, "We're going over so and so," and I said, "Well, wait a second, I'd rather go to this call, this customer."
Hmm.
And he said, "Well, I haven't called them." I said, "Well, there's a phone, call them now." And off we went. And all of a sudden, the truth came out. And we'd have 2 or 3 calls like that when I'd kill the discussion, and I'd ask the salesman, I said, "Okay, what does a company expect you to do? Sell parts, sell service. Did they tell you how to do it? No, they looked at my background and experience, thought I'd be good at it." And then I said, "Well, why do you do it?" And that stumps just about everybody. I ask that question all the time, Jay. What do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And people normally can say what they do, but they're confused by the question.
Right.
Sometimes many people can say how they do it. And in a lot of cases, it's many different answers, but very rarely can they say why. The first answer, obviously, is money. Money's a byproduct of what you do. It's not what you do. It's not why you
Right.
do it. And in your line of work, understanding the drive, the motivation of the person, it is critical in order for you to be successful, in order for them to be successful. So that's another huge, huge difference. The next one is how we manage. We basically just had big financial statements, 15, 18-inch wide computer paper, and it had financial statements on it. It had every damn account that you can imagine out. And at Caterpillar dealer, we were lucky because we were given a chart of accounts. Every Caterpillar dealer in the world used the same chart of accounts, which is a huge advantage over every other
Right.
OEM out there in the construction world. Today, I've got a company called the Capital Goods Sages. We have 200 metrics: parts, service, selling, marketing, administration. And we cover sales, margins, sales per employee, return on assets, return on net assets, all of these things. Nobody ever dreamt of that stuff when I started. The trouble today is people are looking at those metrics as gospel. There we go again. But it's all history. It's not tomorrow.
Right.
And a lot of the trouble that we have with, quote, management today, management in my era in the 69, 70, it goes right up to, I'm going to say 80, maybe a little later. We just was it a better result this month than last month? You're okay. If it wasn't, you aren't. And you didn't like that discussion. And you had those discussions. And there's nothing wrong with those discussions either. I believe there should be a consequence for bad behavior. Today, they don't know what to do. The biggest mood today, in my view, is everybody's confused. They don't know what to do. And then I'll say the last difference in 69, 70 is we made so much money, it was almost unfair. I used to call it the cash machine. And today, we lose about 50% of the dealers every 20 years now. So if I look at 1985 and I had 100 dealers, that means in 2005 I had 50, and in 2025 I've got 25. Does that mean I got 12, 13, and 45? I don't know. I'll have dealers in 45. We're at risk because the management today, we've had a transition delay. There's a lot of men my age, 60s and 70s, that are still running businesses. So the normal pretender to the throne, the 40, 50-year-old stars, are being held back. They're being blocked. And a lot of them are leaving the industry, going someplace where they have a future. I was dealing with a customer about a month or two ago, and they just named us a new president, a new CEO, and they said, we're doing it right this time. I said, oh, how's that? He said, well, we've identified the 3 men that we want to have compete to be his replacement. I said, terrific. How are you doing that? She said, well, we told the 3 guys, and that we're going to name one. I said, terrific. What are you going to do with the 2 that don't get the job? He said, oh, they'll still be here. I said, why? He said, what do you mean? They're not going to stay with you. What future have they got? They're done. They're gone. Did you not consider that? And they hadn't. And I might be wrong, but I don't think those guys will hang around. So there's 4 major differences from in the 56 or whatever the heck's been number of years. There's a lot more at the micro level, but those I think are pretty significant at the macro level.
Yeah, no question. Yeah.
Everybody's comfortable with the status quo, Jay. You know that probably better than anybody. That's part of the problem with our spirituality. You go into a dealership, and I'll have training sessions in the evening for about an hour and a half. At the end of the day, we bring in pizza and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. And one of the sessions that we go through is needs and wants. What do your customers need and want?
Mhm.
We just make a list. Another of the sections is what
How
are the
long is that
5
list typically?
well, we end up with probably 80 to 100 before I start
Okay.
paring it down, and then we group them together to have 10
Y
that are common. Let me go right through the exercise. So we do that, and at the end of it, I got a list of 10 that we all agree on
Mhm.
are the top 10 needs and wants of our customers.
Mhm.
Then we have another meeting a month later, and I bring in 6 to 8 customers in the front of the room. And I ask them to tell me exactly the same thing with the audience with their mouths shut. If I have to tape them, I will. And it's really intriguing. So we go through the same thing. We don't come up with 60, 80, 100. We come up with 20, 40, 60, and we
Mhm.
pare that down to 10, and that's the end of that session. 30 days later, I bring that original group of employees back and have the 2 lists sitting up there. Said, "Okay, fine. What are the ones that are common?" I said, "Well, let's forget those. What are the ones that were on their list that weren't on yours? What are the ones on your list that weren't on theirs?"
Mhm.
Trying to get people to think. Thinking is almost a lost art in the job
No
anymore. We're
kidding.
to
Yeah.
it's I'm gonna sidetrack for a second. We're taught to be obedient from birth. Our parents are protecting us. "Don't touch the stove, you're gonna burn yourself. Look both ways, you could get
Mhm.
killed by an accident." You go to school, you're taught to read and write obediently, and you get a you leave high school, technical school, university, you get a job, congratulations. Somebody trains you how to do the job, not your way, but their way, and they say to you, "Practice this, you'll get better at it, you'll get faster, you'll make fewer mistakes, and you'll get more money." And we continue to be obedient. In life, in society, men and women still get together. Sometimes it's different choices, that's fine. And you get married and you rent an apartment. And all of a sudden you have a child coming and you decide you're going to buy a house and you go to try and get a mortgage and you got to figure out how to do that. Today, it's a real unbelievable deal. But all of a sudden you're stuck with financial responsibilities that you cannot get out of. And in the old days, one parent was sufficient to earn and the other parent could raise the children. Today, that's very rarely possible.
Mm.
And I don't care if you're making 80 grand, it's rarely possible. So what happens? Two parents are working. The kids have nobody at home when they go home. If the parents are wealthy enough, they have daycare, but that's, you know, ersatz parenthood. So who's raising the children? Who's teaching the children values, disciplines, pride, curiosity, ambition? The parents come home, they all have dinner together, that's terrific, but they're exhausted.
Maybe.
Today,
Maybe they
education in
do.
America is terrible. There's standardized testing across the world. America's part of us. We rank 30th in the world, and we spend more money on education per student than anybody else in the world. There's grade 4, grade 8, grade 12 standardized testing, and I won't give you precise numbers, but only 30% of American students are at grade level in arithmetic and reading. How do you recover from that? So go back to AI, go back to change. A person goes to work, they know what they're doing, they know how to do it. Don't confuse them. They're left on their own much too long. They've found a way to do it. So I work with system providers, Vital Edge and Constellation. In the old days, DIS, NDS, PFW, etc. And I used to ask for a report. Show me a report. I was a data processing manager, so I'm one of them. They said, show me a report of how much of the system is actually used. And they don't have standard reports. I used to do one at the dealerships I worked at, and less than 50% of the system programs that are there, system reports that are there, or forms that are there are used on a regular basis. That's an indication of change. That's an indication why AI's got a problem. Everything in learning without scars is artificial intelligence. I don't have time to do all this stuff. I've created the document, so I've got
Right.
software that takes a Word document and gives me an avatar that's speaking it with an audio track
Right.
and subtitles. I didn't do any of that. I was listening to an interview a week or so ago with one of the executives at NVIDIA. They said, and get this one, an author can give me a 350 to 400 page book. I can give it to a software house and they can give me back a 90-minute film clip that's ready for the theaters. Think about that. So
with no
artificial
actors.
intelligence is here. I saw a survey this morning. Only 4% of the job postings in America require or make a mention of artificial intelligence. So it's nowhere near reality yet. Everybody's scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember starting out that here comes the computer, and there was a cartoon that had a button that was being pushed. This is going to replace your job. That was in 1968.
We're still saying that today.
Exactly. Fear is an interesting emotion. You know, you got to fail. This is the thing people don't realize. You got to make mistakes. You don't learn otherwise. The trick in
Right.
life is to recognize when that mistake it's been made and recognize it fast and fix it and move forward. Life is an interesting pursuit, and there's no clean answer, and everybody's got a different view. And I love people everywhere, but they can give me a hell of a lot more than they ever dreamt of. So another exercise I do is give me 5 things that you'd like to do that would make your job easier and the company more money. And I do that with a department. And I'll give you a funny example. I'm in
So you're
Moscow.
forcing critical thinking.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. My daughter teaches in middle school in California. She's got 6 classes, literature, English literature. She's also the curriculum director for her school district on a program called AVID, Advancement via Individual Development. And she's going to start, we're going to add another section to our education process that will be, I don't know what she's going to title it, but critical thinking is part of it. Making presentations is part of it. We don't know how to do those things anymore. So she has children in grades 6, 7, and 8 standing up at the end of every week and making a 15-minute presentation to their classmates about something about that particular subject, that book, that whatever, that had an impact on their life.
Hmm.
Now, there's critical thinking starting at the age of about 12. That's wonderful. But what critical thinking do? So those 5 things, I'm in Moscow. I've got a guy who's got an MBA. He's an executive vice president. He's married. He's got 3 kids. And I can do the 5 things with him. He says, don't do that to me. I said, what do you mean? Don't ask me questions like that. Just tell me what you want me to do and then go away. Can you imagine? That's why I call work a 4-letter word. People need to have the ability to stand up and look over the wall. We probably 85%, maybe a bigger number, never do. And that's a shame because we're wasting
Yeah.
a lot of talent.
I agree. Is there a sacred cow in the industry that you feel like needs to be challenged?
Well, there's many. I used to have a piece of our training called Sacred Cows. There was a book written by a psychiatrist who was a coach for the American Olympic team in the 1960s. And that was when the high jump record was broken and people all of a sudden got higher than 6 feet because they used padding above the ground instead of landing in sand. I don't know if you've ever did a high jump, but when I did, you'd go up 5 feet and you'd come down on your back and you'd land in sand and it hurt.
Yeah, the higher, what incentive is that? That the
Exactly.
higher
Well,
you
the
go, the more
disincentive.
it hurts.
Yeah, that's right. Put it 2 feet down from the floor. I'm fine. But so there's a sacred cow. And what's a sacred cow? To me, a sacred cow is the fact that somebody looks at the internet last night at a dealership, and many dealerships have websites, and they look at their parts business. And the contractor's busy all day. He doesn't have time for this stuff. He's a small operator. He does his own buying, etc. So he checks on the internet. He needs a part. And he looks at a bunch of different sources. And the first thing he looks at is, do you have it? Okay, if you have it, then the second thing he looks at is, what's the price? And then it goes away. The next morning, the guy in the business doesn't have a clue. He didn't get a report of who looked last night. A
Mhm.
sacred cow is anybody that looks at my website last night that did not buy or did buy, I'm going to call. If they bought, I'm going to say, thanks very much. I hope you experienced your experience was beneficial, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy that didn't buy, I'm going to say, hey, George, thanks. I noticed last night you were looking at the foo-foo valve for such and such a machine. And yeah, we have it in stock. I noticed you checked that and we have the price. I said, but I didn't notice you buy it. Do you mind me asking if you bought it? And start that discussion. Another sacred cow is our employees think that our prices are obscene. So somebody calls into the service department. What's your labor rate? Oh, $150 an hour. Dear Lord. How can you charge that much? And the employee doesn't know how to respond. In the parts department, how much is that part? $52.71. Damn, that's expensive. The employee doesn't know how to respond. So we have sessions. We have 8-hour classes on how to handle objections.
Yeah.
First answer on that 52.71 is, damn, that's fine. Really? Compared to who? Let's start a discussion here. I'm not going to roll over. Are you married?
Yeah. Or what does it cost when your machine goes down and it doesn't work anymore? What's that going to cost you?
Hell yes. I said, don't be afraid to fail. At one point, I sold encyclopedias. I've done a lot of stupid things, Jay. I sold encyclopedias at university, and they took us to Quebec City. Very little training. We walked around with a guy one night, and they kind of watched what they did, and the next night we were on our own. And it was about 180, 200 miles from where I lived, and I didn't bring any money, a toothbrush, or anything. So I realized when I'm out there, I got to sell something tonight so I can get out of here and not owe them money. So I go into this first house and they failed. The second house, I start learning a little bit. Who's the one that's going to buy? Who's the one that I can make afraid? And I picked in this particular case on a woman, and I embarrassed her, didn't want her to have her children fail because they didn't have access to an encyclopedia. And they bought, I left, I quit that night. I went down to New Brunswick, which is a overnight train bus ride to a girl that I was dating at the time, spent the weekend, and then went back to Montreal and went into the office to get my check. And they said, well, we'll give you the check, but we'd like you to stay working for us because we'd like you to do the orientation for everybody who wants to do this job. I said, well, I don't have any training for that. And he says, well, it appears you do. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And it's a long, skinny room, Jay, that there's 20 or 30 people in there. They don't know what they're applying for. It's such a blind ad. And I'm in the front of the room at a lectern. There's a door at the back where people come in. They're all sitting in chairs, no tables, just chairs. And there's a door behind me. And I start out and say, well, congratulations and welcome. You're at an interview. Does anybody know what we sell here? And everybody stick up their hand or whatever and say, no, we don't. And I said, well, this is encyclopedia sales. How many of you are interested in selling encyclopedias? Now, nobody's going to stick their hand up. I said, well, if there's any of you that don't want to be here because you don't want to do this, don't be shy. The door's right there. It's right behind me. And I would wait about 30 seconds. They had to walk past me, over me, to get to the door. Nobody ever left. People are interesting. The other thing about selling that's a sacred cow is, and I don't mean this in a funny way, but you stand on a corner in a busy city and you want a date tonight. Ask 100 ladies. You hope like hell that the first 10 is going to give a positive answer. Otherwise, your face is going to be awful sore. But somebody will say yes. So sacred cows, sales are sacred cows. I want to have salesmen that never sell a thing, that customers buy from them. There's a huge distinction. How can I help you? What do you need? Let's talk about it.
Right.
And you're right, Jay. Downtime supersedes everything. And today we've got life cycle statistics, life cycle analytics that are unbelievable. I foresee 20 years from now, we're going to sell machines by the hour. We're not going to send $500,000 machine. You can buy a machine for $73.16 an operating hour, and I'll send you an invoice once a month. And once it gets to the critical point, I'm going to pull that machine out and replace it with another of my choice. That's where we're going. Subscription
Isn't that the
services
rental
on
industry, but
everything.
maybe not hourly?
Maybe it'll be longer, but not a lot. Look at cable, look at satellite, look at phones, look at television.
I imagine the cost effectiveness of getting a heavy piece of machinery moved from one place to another for an hour, that cost would probably make it prohibitive to
Now
be
you're talking about
hourly.
rental. That's a different thing. I'm talking about a guy who wants to buy a machine on a mine, as an example.
Mhm.
That machine's gonna be there 10 years. It ain't leaving that pit for 10 years. If it's a rental machine, it's a different deal altogether. That's a different business. Now, that's another thing that's a sacred cow. Why the heck do we have rental and equipment sales in the same financial statement?
So the hourly this is what your operating cost would be per hour to have this machine, not
Precise
I'm
precise
yeah, got it.
precisely. The rental is how much is the whole cost. That
Mhm.
hole is $5,000. It's gonna take 10 hours. You need a machine for $500 an hour. You got it done. Return on net assets on the rental business, Sunbelt's a good example. They're a publicly traded company. They're British. You know what the return on net assets is for Sunbelt?
No.
50%. They have an $8 billion inventory and rent. They get $4 billion net pre-tax. That's akin to drugs, illicit and illegal drugs. An equipment dealer's lucky to get 5% today.
Mm.
None of my guys are under 10 because I tend to look at the world
You mean
differently.
on the rental side
No,
or
no,
on machine
on the
sales?
sales side, on the
Yeah,
standard dealership,
yeah.
over
Yeah,
10.
it depends obviously what kind of machine you're selling, but yeah, you get some specialty equipment and your margins are can be pretty good.
Well, on equipment, it's 0. The machine is bait to me in the parts and service world. We make all our money on parts and service. We don't make
Oh,
any money on
100%.
machine.
Yeah.
So,
You make
sacred
some,
cows,
but
most of the people that are running the equipment dealerships, forget the rental for a second. They either
mhm,
come out of sales or they come out of finance, and they're confused about labor and parts. They really don't understand it, nor do they care to. That's
which
why
is interesting to
50% of the
me.
dealers are going away every 20 years.
There aren't a lot of people that I talk to that don't understand that parts and service are your highest margin business. So why wouldn't you focus on that?
It's that simple, Jay.
Well,
It really is.
it ain't rocket science. I mean,
Well,
no
nothing. Look,
disrespect to anybody, but
if I can do it and make a living at it for 50 years, it ain't that simple, man. I mean, it ain't that complicated is the way to I mean to say it.
yeah.
You know,
Right, right.
I started in '69, as I said, and it was on a contract to fix a problem with a computer installation. And one of the blessings I had is the senior partner of the consulting company that sold that system to that dealership spent 1 day a week, 8 to 10 hours a day with me alone, the 2 of us, for about 4 months.
Mhm.
I knew more about inventory management than probably anybody in the Caterpillar equipment dealer world. A next blessing was I went to standard Caterpillar yellow paint school, product training school in June. And I'll never forget it because my name was in the book of people going into the US, and I was against the wall with my hands against it and my legs spread being frisked because there was and Slee is a very unusual last name. So I go to Peoria and I'm in class and I meet a man by the name of Bob Kirk, who's in his 60s, a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he was Caterpillar's guru for the world for inventory management. And it was like I'd met my brother. The 2 of us were kindred spirits, and he put me under his wing. Another guy that I met at that time was Larry Noe, Noe, and he was part of the founding group of Dealer Data Processing, the service bureau that Caterpillar put together for their dealers. And the same thing happens. And Larry put me under his wing, and I've been blessed like that by a whole
Yeah.
bunch of mentors, and that's something else that's missing today. We don't spend time mentoring the employees that come behind. We don't spend enough. You probably know this better than anybody. Tell me who does a good performance review. What manager you know that's been trained to do performance reviews? It's a lost art. It's a shame. It's supposed to be a positive event. It isn't. I
Yeah,
could
there's a
give you
lot
a
of
long
companies
list,
that
my
don't
friend,
that
that you
don't
don't
get
have
that
enough
right.
time in this podcast, I promise you.
No, we don't. That alone is I mean, multiple podcasts, honestly. Is there a book that you think every equipment dealer should read?
Well, let me answer it in a different way. I gave a book to my grandchildren when they were 16.
Mhm.
The book is called Ikigai,
Mhm.
Ikigai, and it's the Japanese pursuit of happiness.
Mhm.
I think every person on the planet should read that. Find something you're passionate in is the very first thing.
Yeah,
And
actually, just for the listeners, if you search on Google Ikigai and you look for images, there's some really good Venn diagrams that kinda tell that story, that explain the concept of Ikigai. So
if you go to
if that's a term that you're not familiar with and you wanna know what that is, and you want a nice little simple visual to just make some quick sense of it, that's what I would recommend.
and if you wanna go a little bit further, go to Learning Without Scars, our website, learningwithoutscars.org. Under resources, at the very bottom of resources is other. There's a suggested reading list there that has about 300 books that I recommend to people. Ikigai is one of them. You can search it by title, you can search it by author, you can search it by uh, are they professors, are they business leaders, whatever. And the second book I would have you read is Indistractable.
Hmm.
It's not a word, it was made up. Indestractable or whatever, Indistractable. It's written by an
Mhm.
Israeli who's a teacher of behavioral science at either Harvard or MIT.
Mhm.
And I read this book, I don't know, maybe 5, 10 years ago, and it changed the way I do my work. After 60 years or some damn thing, he came up with an idea that I still use today. I'm a to-do list maniac, or I used to be, I'm no longer.
Huh.
And I get more done with less stress. There's a whole bunch of books. There's authors that you should read of. One of them is Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah, definitely.
He's
He's
got
got a
about 10
lot
of
of
them.
books that are great.
Yeah, he tells stories. It's a fable. It's
Yeah,
easy to
yeah.
read. Another is Charles Handy, who's the London School of Economics, the European, um, who's the guy at Claremont. His name escapes me right now, but there's a lot of business gurus. Um, you can get a lot. People should read. I used to have a standard deal. Once a month, we'd have a different book, and everybody would get the book, and we would, at the end of the month, we sit down and talk about it. We find out. I say, okay, what can we do with this? Is there something we can apply it? How do we apply it? No, this is no good. Terrific. What'd you think? Why didn't you like it? Get people thinking. It's amazing the talent you have around you that nobody knows. People are shy. I never was. I used to drive people crazy. Why do we do it that way? One of the guys, Ray Roberts, whose job I took as a data processing manager, he, I had a lot of conflict with him because I wanted a whole bunch of stuff changed. And he said, "I'll do this, but this is the last one. If this doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I'm not gonna do any more of this crap for you ever again." And of course, it worked. And I took Ray from Montreal to Edmonton, Alberta to leave his job and security, brings his family 2,000 miles across the country. Then, after we were there 2 or 3 years, I took him to Denver, Colorado to follow me. And this guy didn't wanna talk to me. And yet he went anywhere that I want him to go. People are phenomenal. I want somebody to speak their mind. I want them to argue. There's another style that I like to follow. It's understanding, acceptance, and commitment. One of my partners along the way was a fellow by the name of Malcolm Ferries. He was a graduate of the Air Force Academy, got a master's at Stanford. He was a fighter pilot, crashed, broke his back. He became a nuclear weapons officer in submarines. He worked for Rickover. He became the vice president of dealer development for PACCAR, and he started a business with me called Insight, where we met with dealer groups. And Mac was amazing. And he brought that understanding, acceptance, and commitment. Everybody has to understand what you're doing. And that's a communications issue. Everybody has to accept that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And this is where we fail, because we don't create the environment that we can sit down as a group of people and have a fight about it. In polite terms, that's debate about it. An argument is a mathematical expression. It's not a fighting expression. But I want a vigorous dispute. And I want everybody to speak their mind. Good, bad, ugly, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And we will make a decision as a group. There's no autocrat here. There's no super boss here. We're doing this as a group. If we're going to do this, we're all together. Now, if you don't agree with this, you're the one or two or three that don't agree with the decision of the group, you better shut your face and go along with this as if it's your idea. And then we go forward with the commit. Now everybody's committed. Let's do it. And you know what? It works.
It's interesting. There's a whole profession centered around change management.
Yep.
And of all the people that I've interviewed and talked to, change management is made easier when you collaborate, when you bring people into the conversation, and you can come up with the idea of this change, this continuous improvement. It's a whole lot easier for people to want to endorse and get behind if they felt like they shared in this change than when somebody decides this is just what we're going to do and you try to cram it down their throats. It seems in business today, though, taking the time to have open dialogue and sit down and create your list and consolidate that list and come up with, okay, here's the one good idea that we're going to focus on, or here's the 2 or 3 or 4 that we're going to focus on. People in business today, it seems that they don't want to make the time to do that. There's too much, it seems, competing for that time. And it's what Stephen Covey refers to as a quadrant 2 activity, planning and continuous improvement. It's not urgent, but it's important. The problem is most people focus on urgent. Even if urgent is unimportant, they'll focus on it. So, so you make a good point about collaborating and coming to some conclusion on, okay, what's the best path forward? What's the change that we're going to make? And then once you collectively, contribute to that, then driving that change is made a whole lot easier.
Well, you focus on the thing that's our problem. It's time. And that's why that book, Indistractable, is so good. I was taken out of the Caterpillar family in 1980 and started a consulting business.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the 45 years you're thinking about. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and I brought in 3 guys to run this place with me. It was a precondition to my contract with the guy, and I had a 5-year contract.
What kind of business was it?
It was a replacement parts and service business to compete with Caterpillar dealers. This is the largest broker of Caterpillar equipment in the world. He wanted to be a Caterpillar dealer, and Caterpillar would not let it happen. So he said, okay. And he comes down and he did a dance on me like I would never believe. I'm running the parts business at Finning, 53 stores. We covered 100% of the expenses of the company with the parts profit.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was bored because I'm not an administrator. My job was babysitting
You're
and
a fixer.
I don't like, and I'm not good at either. I'm a problem solver. Give me problems, I'm in heaven. So he comes down and he presented a problem. So I went through all the machinations with my wife and friends, et cetera, as what to do. And I came back and we had 2 or 3 discussions. And so I went. And every morning and every afternoon, I turned my chair, which was big enough to hide me completely, to the door so that nobody knew that I was there. I spent 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon thinking. Very rarely does anybody have time. You talk about the urgency. People, it's not urgency, it's a problem. Fix the problem.
Mm.
Why can't you fix the damn problem yourself? Because it's better to go ask the boss. And I have that happen to me all the time. I said, what's the right answer? Spend the time and help them come to a conclusion and give them confidence that you're not going to chop their legs off if they make a mistake. Leadership is taking people to places that they wouldn't go by themselves. And making decisions is part of that. And most people don't want to make a decision for fear it's wrong.
Right.
I don't care if it's wrong. Do you
Like you
believe?
said, fear is a funny thing. It will cause people to do some really, really crazy stuff
Yeah,
or
I'm going to
not
call it.
do anything at all.
Yeah, I'm going to call it stupid. I used to start every class with 3 definite. I'm weird, Jay. I started teaching in 1965 when I was going to university, and I was a swimmer, and I was asked to put together an aquatics program at McGill University, which I did. Didn't know that I was going to be able to do it. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I taught school while I was finishing my junior and senior years at university. I thought it'd be cool because I'd see girls in bathing suits. Not that I was attracted to girls in bathing suits, but that was one of the motivations. Oh, we come out, and I would always start a class. This is small classes. This is 20 to 30 people.
Mhm.
I said, okay, they don't know me. They don't know each other. And I start with, can anybody give me a definition of ignorance? And now they wonder, what the hell have I got myself into here? So there's a lot of quiet. Nobody really knows what to do with that. And I said, well, ignorance is rather simple. It's not knowing what to do, right? Oh, okay, we get it. I said, okay, what's the definition of stupidity? Now, some people in the crowd are starting to figure this out, and occasionally I'll have somebody that'll come up with the answer. The definition of stupidity is knowing what to do and not doing it. And then the third definition is insanity, and just about everybody's heard either Mark Twain or Einstein's definition, continuing to do what you've always done, expecting different results. Now, remember, this is the first 15 minutes of every class that I'm teaching at university. And these kids are all there to get degrees, not to listen to some idiot talk about ignorance, stupidity, and insanity. And I say, well, at the end of this semester, at the end of this session, you're not going to be stupid because I'm going to tell you what to do. So I'm going to leave you the choice of being, you're not going to be ignorant. I'm going to leave you the choice of being stupid or insane. And looking around the room, I don't see a padded wall in your future. So how many of you are going to leave here and be stupid because you're not going to do anything with what you learned here? So translate that into today's training by OEMs, by associations, by everybody. Show me the test that they have at the end of the session, the 2 days, the 3 days, the 5 days. We have 120 questions in our smallest test that we put at the end of a class. We have 21 segments in a class, and we have a quiz at the end of every segment, 3 to 5 questions each. So I got 20 questions in the test, and I got 130, I got 300 questions, and I give you scores on both sides. I know what you know. So when I was teaching in larger venues, I got 200, 100 people in a stadium type of setting, I'd ask a question and ask for a show of hands. I didn't know whether they're telling me the truth or lying through their teeth. Today, I put a question up on the screen behind me. You got a tablet, you got a cell phone, you got a laptop. I can get an answer of what people know at the answer to that question right away. So I can adjust my teaching because I want them to understand what they're learning. I teach Socratically. I don't ask questions. I don't give answers. I ask questions. I want to help you teach yourself. It's important to me that people open up and learn. Open up
Mhm.
and think. Open up and challenge authority. Why do we do it that way? Not this guy in Russia. Just tell me what to do. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, Jay, so I talk like a maniac. But when I see the lights go on in people's eyes, that really excites me. That turns my crank.
Yeah.
Is this what you
Kidding.
expected, friend?
No, I don't know that I had an expectation. I mean, we've obviously talked a couple of times, and you've got a lot of worldly wisdom, and so I'm just gonna let it flow. So,
Well, speaking of
how much
wisdom,
of
you
your
have
time today is spent in front of equipment companies?
well, the
Work.
Indistractable book asks me to break my time down in my day in 24 hours into blocks of time.
Mhm.
So my first block is catching up on emails and texts before I even get out of bed. The second block is responding to the emails and returning phone calls, and that's about another hour. Then I'll stop and have some food or a shower, get dressed, whatever the heck it is. And then the next block is following up on things that I am actively engaged in, projects, things, writing classes, et cetera, et cetera. 2 hours every day, I try and talk to dealers, period, every day. And I do. Yesterday, I had 2 talks with 2 schools, and I spoke with 5 dealers. That took 5 hours of my time yesterday. And I can tell you that every day.
And are these conversations just open dialogue, or is this work that they've contracted you to do?
No, no, I'm not contracted with anybody anymore. I don't
Okay.
I don't I still do an occasional consulting job, but it's only people that I've been doing this with for 20, 30 years. The last consulting job I had was in '23 in Poland. My wife was not particularly happy because the war was going on then,
Mm.
but, they'd been a client of mine since 1980. So they were part of the crew that, enabled me to be a consultant, have a living doing it. So I
Mhm.
go over there and I'm working in Warsaw, in Finland, and Estonia, and I could have walked into Russia from Estonia from the meeting room. When I told Marlene, my wife then, what she just about had a fit. But, it was fine. I love that. So I don't consult anymore. Occasionally I will, but I answer a lot of questions, but it's me posting questions more than anything else. What stands in your way from being better? And I try and get those discussions going. How can I help you? I'm going to Sweden in March, and it's a training event, and it's a guy that was in classes with me 20 or so years ago, and he wants to bring it to his manufacturer. And he said, "I don't have much budget. How much will it cost?" And I said, "Well, tell me what you want." And we go back and forth. And I said, "Well, you're going to have to pay the expenses." He said, "Oh, I'll pay the expenses." I said, "Well, to make it easy for you, the rest of it's free. Is that okay?" And how does anybody say no to that?
Right.
So if somebody asks me to do something, I say, "Sure." I don't care what it is. Yeah, I'll do it. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly, we're going to have a discussion about it. I want to know precisely what you want, not just answer that one question. But at my age, I don't need money. If you need something badly enough and you want it badly enough and you can't afford it, I'll try and help. My purpose in life, my wife died about 14, 15 months ago after 51 years of marriage. So I'm in a completely different place in my life than I've ever been.
Mm.
To one degree, I'm lost. And my bankers and pension people laugh at me because I didn't write a check for 52 years. My wife is an auditor, an accountant, a trained professional. So I didn't have to do a damn thing. I was lucky as hell.
Mhm.
The other thing that it did was force me to understand money. So I had different people help me with a budget. So they've created what they call my piggy bank.
Mhm.
So simple things. So beyond that, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to finish the business. Learning Without Scars, we incorporated it in 2015. I started a training business in 1994. When everybody walked away from training, we created a company called Quest Learning Centers. We did all of the associated equipment distributors training for parts and service management in the country for 20 years. We were the sole source. We did also sales and product support selling and marketing. And then we went to the webinar world, and that ticked me off because as a teacher, I need to see my audience. And I couldn't see them. It's a two-dimensional discussion. So I figured out that I could get a projection camera. and an 8x8 screen. So I'd project my slides and I'd talk in the background, and with a remote, I'd push a button and I'd walk into the screen and I'd talk to them. They could see me, I couldn't see them. And my trademark became Hawaiian shirts. Everybody who came to a webinar wonder what shirt he's going to wear today. So I did that for a long time, and that forced me to look at a different vehicle for the training. And the reason webinars came in is because, and the reason that the 90s was such a dropping in training is all of a sudden employee development became a discretionary expense. Except for technicians that were required by the manufacturer, except for salespeople, there was no training for operational people. And we focus on anybody who touches customers, anybody who leads people, and anybody who manages assets. And I want to start with guidance counselors in high school, because what the heck does a kid at 15, 16 know about what he wants to do for the rest of his life? I was 16 when I went to university and enrolled. I won't tell you different parts of my anatomy that I thought were I didn't have a clue. So I took mathematics and physics, and I figured after 3 to 6 months, this is much too specific for a generalist like me, and I stopped going to classes. I learned how to curl and all kinds of crazy stuff. I got the notes from somebody, so I got what I call a diploma. I did the least amount possible. And here I am at getting that, and I'm teaching university across town. Figure that out. So then, you come around, and we got Quest going, but I needed a different vehicle because I can't stand up like I used to. So I'd go to Europe for 2 weeks. I'd have classes Monday, Tuesday. I'd rest Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, have the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, repeat. And I'd be in Europe 1 week, and the next week I'd be in Asia. So my sleep pattern was destroyed. It's still destroyed. So that became a bear, and I said, I got to change this. I looked at the webinar structure. I looked at the projection that we had. And I said, okay, I can create modules, which is what I did. And then I put the modules together. We have 32 classes in 5 departments: parts, service, selling, marketing, and customer service, 160 classes. They're 8 hours each. We are an internationally accredited school, so that any CEU that we issue earns an academic credit. It's not the industry CEU. It is a real CEU anywhere in the world. You can go to technical school, vocational school, junior college, community college, public and private university, give them your certificate from Learning Without Scars, and they'll add it to your transcript.
Oh, wow.
Nobody else in the capital goods industry can do that anywhere yet.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, and it's evolved, obviously, but all of a sudden, I start going to dealers and say, I'm not going to do the classes in front of you anymore. I'm going to have your guys take these things, and I'll come in and we'll have discussions about their knowledge. So you take a class. All of a sudden, this is another tool we offer with Learning Without Scars. You have your employees take the class. 10 of them, we're going to have a Zoom meeting, a Teams meeting, a Riverside meeting on Friday, such and so, between 10 and 12, we're going to talk about it. So we add that to it. My daughter's the teacher, the reading list thing. We're going to have reading looks. We're going to have books. It's going to be called the reading room or something, and Caroline's going to drive it. Critical thinking. There'll be all manner of things. So that's what saved my life, and that's why we transitioned away from webinars and teaching in front of the classroom. It was too expensive. It's still too expensive, and people do not want to spend. Interesting story. Wajax Corporation, a client of mine for a long time in Canada, publicly traded company, more than $2 or $3 billion worth of sales a year. This year is the first time in their history that they've allocated $1,000 of training for operational people in the company. Never have they had an operational training budget in their history.
And when you say operations or operational, what does that include?
Anybody who touches customers, anybody who leads people, anybody who manages assets in the company. They have 130 stores. I'm thinking there'll be minimum of 10. That's 1,300 students. We sell them a $500 package a year. You work the arithmetic, this kind of works. And that's an 8-year program, by the way. I deal with Myanmar. They're on 6 continents. They have a university. They do a lot of their own training. I said, that's terrific. What are you missing? What do you want? How do you know what they know? Oh, we'd like assessments. We'd like tests. I say, hey, we got those. Well, how much are your tests? They got to be expensive. Yeah, it depends. If it's a certification test, it's $50. Oh, how many people you got? 100. Oh, congratulations. You're going to spend $5,000 to know exactly how much those people know.
Seems like a lot of value.
It's confusing people, Jay, because a guy that's been working on the parts counter for 20 years, a guy that's been a lead hand on the floor for 20 years, a guy that's been a technical communicator or doing warranty for a dealership for 20 years, they take the test. It's a percentage. We break it into 0 to 40, 40 to 60, 60, 80, 80 to 100. Where do you think they fall?
No idea. Not great.
That's right. About half of them are under 40. The other half, maybe 55 is a high number.
Why is that? I mean, we started earlier in the conversation about our education system and how we have the 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade standardized tests, and how 30% of students are at
grade level,
at the appropriate grade level in reading, and probably even math. That's probably even worse.
No, it's the same.
Why?
It's plus or minus 2 points either way.
What's the root problem there?
We're not teaching. Okay, let me give you an example. We're all 10 years old. There's 100 of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to go to grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the first day of school, we go to grade 3 and we all get into our grade. We're told, and there's 25 people in a grade, so I got 4 classes. You're an A, B, C, or D. I want the kids to go to school who are 10 years old, and the first half day, they're going to fill out questionnaires. They're going to fill out tests. They're going to be interviewed. And then they go home.
Mm-hmm.
And they come to school the following Monday, and I assign them a grade. And it's anywhere from grade 1 to grade 5, based on their skill, knowledge, and level of understanding. So if you're particularly slow at that point in your development as a person, and I put you into grade 1, everybody's at that level, you don't feel bad. If you're particularly advanced, I don't put you in grade 3 where you're bored to hell. I put you in grade 5 where you got to work your ass off to keep going. You go to work, and remember our argument about change? They figure out what the job is. So think about the parts counter. Phone rings. Answer the phone. First question, who are you? No joke. Who are you? How can I help you? They give you a list of part number description. You write it down, put it in the computer, whatever it is, hang up, the phone rings again, you keep on going. That's what they think the job is. It ain't. And that's the fundamental problem. I had 8 guys, great story. I can tell stories coming out as a teacher, it's terrible, but I had 8 guys running the counter, and I might have told you the story. And my cubicle is looking at the front door, and the counter's to my left, and to my right is the receptionist and a little waiting area for people. And a customer comes in on a Friday afternoon, and it's packed. The counter's busy, the phones are ringing, everything's wonderful if you want to make money. The guy comes in the front door, he looks at the counter, turns, and he goes to sit down. He picks up the phone. I'm watching this. He picks up the phone, he dials a number. I can hear the phone ringing. The receptionist answers the phone. She transfers it to the parts department. I can see a guy leaving a customer. Excuse me, I've got to answer that phone. He goes, answers the phone, takes the order. The last question is, where can I ship it? He said, no, I'll pick it up. I'm over here, as he stood up and waved his hand. We've trained our customers not to come to the store, for God's sake. They get better service if they use the phone. I could kill to get the guy into my store. So there's another sacred cow. How come our dealer branch is not a retail store with in-store merchandising? Go to a grocery store, go to a Lowe's, try and get to the counter without having to wander through the merchandise. We're not retailers at all. It's terrible. If that doesn't change, that's why the dealers aren't going to be here. I can buy every single part for every single brand from another source anywhere in the world today. I started doing that in 1980. I'm not the only idiot that does that kind of stuff. I'm cheap. I sat at the heat treater in Bologna, northern Italy. That was the major there was only one heat treater. I sat there for 2 weeks talking to the guys that did the work. Hey, who's the most stringent on their specs? Who has the best product coming out of here? Then I went to visit them, and guess what? They were all Caterpillar suppliers. Can I buy from you? So I'm running parts at Finning in Vancouver. This is 1979. And there was a guy beating me up with price, and I knew where he was buying the part. So I had Caterpillar come in. I said, this guy's competing with me with your product, and I'm not allowed to sell it for fear I'll get canceled. I want to sell that product. I want to put that sucker out of business. He said, "Yet we're not recording anything here, are we? Because I don't want to be involved in putting anybody out of business." I said, "No, but I want you to allow me to sell that part." They said, "Okay, I will." They will. They allowed me to sell the part as long as the gross profit I made was no greater than what they made, that I made on the rest of the Caterpillar family. So the part I bought was dealer net $100. This is an absolute true story. It was a loader linkage pin. It's nothing fancy. $100 was the dealer net, 150 was the consumer list. I'm selling it Canadian, call it 150. I had to adjust for currency. This guy is selling that same thing for $75. He's buying it for 10. So I'm told by Caterpillar I can't make more 33%, so I sold her for 15. That guy went away very quickly. So I had an
Right, but
ad program
you
that I
said you
ran.
bought it for 100.
I bought it at a Caterpillar dealer at 100, but as a I could buy from this quote Jippo is what we called them for 10. The guy that was competing with me bought it for 10, but he was selling it for 75 because I was selling it for 100. He's half my price. Caterpillar said, "You can buy it from that, but you can't make more money than you do on Caterpillar." So they forced me to sell it for 15. I wouldn't have gone to 15. I would have gone to 50 or something like that. I would have started a little bit of a game. Caterpillar put a computer terminal into Fort McMurray, which is the tar sands, which is a huge volume of parts. So I'm competing with them. I put a computer terminal right beside the Caterpillar dealer computer terminal. The Caterpillar dealer computer only allowed them to check availability. I said, "Is that the only thing that's important?" "No, the price is important." I say, "I'll give you a price too." So now what's the Caterpillar dealer going to do? Because I know what their selling price is. It's public. I set my selling price. It's not going to be the same as theirs. It'll be lower. And I started a dance. If they decided they'd come down, I'd keep on going. And I ran an advertising program that had a Caterpillar box, the full thing, the logos and all the rest, and a yellow box. And the question is, what's in the box? How much is what's in the box? And this Caterpillar box was $50. And I said, "Well, how much is a box?" "Yeah, 50 cents. Okay, so we got rid of the box. They're both wrapped with oil paper. How much is, well, 20, $50. You take that away. So now I got a part, and it's a bearing. This is $20. This is $10. How much is the box? The bearing's got the same damn markings on them. So how much is the bearing?" You have no idea how successful that was. I put 2 or 3 things like that in every salesman's suitcase and said, "Go do it." Nuts and bolts. Most people don't know. What's the grip length? People don't understand specs. You got to know your business, damn it. If you're a doctor and you're doing an operation, you better have done it before you touch me. Life is simple. It's people that screw it up. It really is. And people don't look over the wall. They don't challenge. If they don't believe in something, how can you be committed to it? And like you said, collaboration, Covey, Colin Powell's famous, or he said, leadership's interesting. Said, "How do you get people to follow you over the hill when you don't know what's on the other side of the hill?" And with his job description, I'm not sure that I'd want to follow him over a hill. Eisenhower, when he was running the landing in France, somebody asked him, "What's leadership?" Eisenhower was an amazing leader. He had a little piece of string. He had it on his desk. And you see, if I try and push that string across, how difficult that is. That's why I want to lead people. I'll pull the string. See how easy that is? So that's the difference between Montgomery and Eisenhower. You got to read. You got to become a student of history. Don't repeat errors. And there's so many opportunities. The internet, I was on the internet in 1972 or 3 with a company by the name of IP Sharp, Ian Sharp. And I'm the Caterpillar dealer. And he had a language called APL, a programming language that was created by a man by the name of Ken Iverson. IBM hired him, locked him up, trademarked everything. Ken and Iverson, or Ian and Iverson, were good buddies. Ian hired Ken's sons. So he created Sharp APL. So we were on the internet when government agencies and that kind of thing, and only them. When he sold his company, the buyer was Reuters. Reuters sold a piece of it to Bloomberg. Just imagine how much Ian's company was worth. Good friend of mine, David Keith is his name. I'm not even sure he's still alive. He did the airline pricing for American when Del Crandall was the chairman, that changes the price every day, according to how many seats there are, what it is, all this stuff. I mean, if you look at changing the status quo, if you look at shifting paradigms, to use that term, if you look at sacred cows, Sam Walton, how did he become successful? He went to a supplier, Jay, and he said, I want you to be my sole supplier. Oh my God, thank you very much. That's wonderful. But I got two conditions. One, you will never run out. My shelf will always have your product on it. That's your responsibility. Two, I won't pay for your product until it passes my cash register. He had no inventory cost. No wonder he's a low-cost supplier. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, bookstores. He read a lot. I read a lot. The bookstores never have our books. You have to order them. You have to pay the freight. Bezos says, well, I can do that a little differently. Now he's a logistics company. He doesn't make a damn thing. He just provides logistics. Who's the better company? Who's the biggest volume? Walmart. Because logistics by itself doesn't do it. FedEx. There's examples all over the place if we look. So what in our industry is exposed? Undercarriage has been killed already. Tips and teeth. There's, all of these competitive items, there's multiple suppliers and multiple options.
It's commoditized for sure.
But you got to know you got to know the specs, and you got to be able to defend the specs. What causes a tip to wear? Packing between the tip and the adapter. So it's got to have a good fit there. Does it or not? A good salesman goes by and he says, oh, you have to change your tips a lot. How do you know that? Or you can tell whether the operator's right-handed or left-handed by which part of the cutting edge wears. But you got to know. I was with a salesman in Texas one time, and we're watching a job. There's a lot of machines, and they break for lunch. And we get out of the truck, and we're wandering around, and I said, look at that undercarriage. And the guy goes to reach it and touch the bushing. I said, don't do that. You're going to burn your hand. He didn't realize it was squealing. Didn't realize friction's building up. The only reason that friction's there is heat's coming out of that dam. He would have burned his hand. People don't know what they don't know. It's a terrible thing.
We can probably start to land the plane if you're good with that.
Sure, go ahead.
I am kind of curious. You've been in the industry a long time. Is there something that surprised or frustrated you most about your journey?
People that say no. That's my failure. It's not theirs. But I wasn't able to communicate properly to get them to understand. The most fun that guy that made me move out of the parts business to data processing, he fired me 5 times. One time I was actually at home and the phone was ringing. I answered the phone. He said, what are you doing at home? I said, you fired me. Get your back here. And, that's the way he was. I went to another boss who was a son-in-law, and I didn't have enough to do. So I told him I need more work. That confused the shit out of him. Nothing happened. So I went in at the beginning of a month and I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave. I'm going to start leaving at noon every day because I've really only got half a day. And I don't think people want to see me sitting here with my feet up reading a book. He said, okay. And he didn't believe me. So Monday, I'm not there in the afternoon. Tuesday, I'm not there in the afternoon. Wednesday, I'm in his office. So what are you doing? I said, I told you what I was doing. Well, you can't do that. I said, I told you I was going to do it, but you had to give me more work. So he gave me more work. I did it again to him. He said, get out of here. That kind of thing frustrates me. Let me have my head. Let people have a chance. What do they want to do? Give every month. What would you like to do this month? Start something stupid. Is there anything you'd like to do today at work that would make your job easier? Think about it.
Or in my case, one of the things that I see for organizations that's frustrating is there's no real clear vision. So people have a job, but they can't put their job in the context of the larger purpose of the organization. And
That's
so
Patrick
start
Lencioni.
something, but don't start something that's not going to align with the organization's purpose or vision or values. But if you don't make it clear to your people what your purpose is and what you're set out to achieve, your long range vision and your short range, and the objectives that you're working on now this quarter to achieve that, to get one step closer or two steps closer to that end in mind, then how will employees ever really know how to guide themselves to be in alignment with that organizational vision and mission? The answer is it's like pin the tail on the donkey. I mean, some might get it. The blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
I don't like those odds, though. The first book
Those are
Lencioni
terrible odds. It's terrible.
wrote, you know what it was called? The 3 Signs
No?
of a Miserable Job.
Oh,
Exactly what
yeah.
you're talking about. The first one is anonymity. Nobody knows who the hell I am. They don't know if I'm married, have children, I've got a sick mother or anything. Second one is
Mm,
irrelevance. They don't know how their job fits into the overall picture. And
mm,
the third one is immeasurability. The word doesn't exist, just like indistractable. At the end of the day, a technician is wonderful because he knows what he did. He knows how much work went out through his station. The
mhm.
office, they don't know that. Give them metrics, give them measures that when they leave the office, they can say, damn, I had a good day today. Damn, I need to do better tomorrow. Kaizen.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know the difference between efficiency and effectiveness? 2 common English words. Efficiency is doing things well. Effectiveness is doing the right thing. I want
Yeah.
to be
Stephen Covey
effective.
talks about the ladder climbing. You can effectively scale the ladder. That's efficiency. Having the ladder on the right wall, that's effectiveness.
That's right. If she's
Mhm.
waiting on the first balcony of the next building, you're not very effective, baby.
Well, this has been great. I really, really appreciate spending time with you. I always enjoy it. Your stories are endless. I mean, honestly, we could do podcast once a week for a year, I'm sure, and still not get into all your stories.
Well, that's what teaching does to you, how to get to people. You know,
Mm,
it's to some people, it's boring, but once people have been around me, through AED, we had 3 levels, unit 1, 2, and 3. With our certification programs, we have 4 levels: diagnostic, basic, advanced, and master. And in every single case, there's a progression of learning. There's building blocks. So I can't give you a master's class on marketing until you understand that marketing is anything and everything we do to help us sell. And if you understand that, then I can take it further. But if you don't, what's marketing? Oh, that's trade shows, it's conventions, it's playing golf with people, it's taking people out to, yeah, go away. But if you asked 100 dealer people that are not salespeople, and then you asked 100 people that are salespeople, you'd be surprised how close those answers would be to those things. Market segmentation, Nick Maverick, that podcast on Monday, Nick Maverick is proving you don't do your market segmentation based on 10%, 25%, 50% of your parts business, service business, rental business. It's Steve Day's been doing it for years. He led the parts business for Komatsu for years. He was the executive vice president of Tractor and Equipment. He always went after the top 20% of his customers. He said, that's terrific, Steve. What about the guy that has 100 machines, doesn't buy anything for you? You're forgetting potential, my man. He said, come on, that's no good. I can't spend that kind of money. Really? So you want to let somebody else get the next machine? He said, no. How come your inventory is 50% doesn't move? Why you still got it? Get rid of it. I mean, there's so many fundamental things,
yeah.
Jay, and you're right. These podcasts, our podcasts, anybody who's sharing their wisdom, we have 70 people writing and contributing. I call them thought leaders, experienced executives, revolutionary reformers, and I'm adding another character quality, storytelling. I got an executive vice president for the second or third largest bank in Canada. His name is Rod Owens, who's going to start putting finance up on our system because bankers don't understand finance. They don't understand working capital. Imagine. Ask somebody
That's a
in the
problem.
ask somebody in the service business, what's working capital? Ask a sales manager, what's working capital? They won't be able to tell you. It's anything and everything we have here that we sell. It's really simple stuff. But it's dirty fingernail stuff. You don't get it by reading a book. You get it by getting scars. That's why the company's called Learning with Scars, because I got lots of scars, my friend. I ain't going to show them to you, but I got lots of scars.
Yeah. I mentioned that on my first podcast. We talked about the scars. It came up not intentionally. That was just the sort of metaphor that I used. But if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? Is that through your website? Is that through an email? Is that through a phone number?
Yeah, look at the website and you can get me there. There's an email address under resources,
What
how to
the
get in touch.
web address, is it learningwithoutscars.com? Is that the website?
.org, O-R-G.
.org. Okay, great. So
And then my
learningwithoutscars.org.
email is ron at learningwithoutscars, either .org or .com. If I get my way, will be a .edu by the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Nice.
we are a school.
How active are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all of them.
Okay.
So you can reach me there too. We post.
Okay, great.
I have social media people in Indonesia and Bangladesh, and I've got an outfit out of Louisiana that has staff in India that does all the SEO, made a posting for Google and those things. So if you go to LinkedIn, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff. You go to Facebook, same thing. You go to WhatsApp, same thing. You go to X, all of them, it's there. So, and I prefer not the phone because the phone rings in the middle of the night. I'm in Hawaii and people forget that at 9 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings here at 2 and I'm not a happy camper.
No, I can imagine not. I wouldn't be too happy either.
I've still got email from 1972 and people still send emails to it, believe it or not. So I don't kill emails.
Yeah.
And don't be shy. Anybody got a question, just let it rip.
Great
and
resource.
I look forward to posting your stuff as classes and assessments and all the rest. Whenever you're ready, man, we are.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds like a deal. It's a date.
There you go.
Ron.
Thank you.
So great to see you.
It's a
Thanks
pleasure.
for spending time with me.
Do keep up the good work, my friend. You're a very important link in the whole industry.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Heavy Hitters. And if you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to follow and share. Now stay focused and stay tuned.